All right, I'm excited to be here. Great group here. This is awesome. I've come to the last couple Utah JS conferences, and they've been awesome, so I was like, I want to be a part of it. Today, we're going to talk a bit about code reviews. This is, I'm going to call it part 2 of a 3-part series of code reviews today. There's one earlier by Neil and one after by Daniel, and it's great. And so I'm going to talk a little about how we can improve our team culture. A little bit about myself, though. Like I said, my name's Dano. I'm a self-taught programmer. Several years back, I was in college and didn't have money and decided I didn't want to go into debt. So I dropped out, learned how to program, built a music blog because I love music, ended up getting some traction, built WordPress plugins, and got hired by a company. It was great. And so currently I also run the Utah JS Lehigh Meetup. If anybody's ever interested, it's the first Thursday of every month. And then if there's anything else to get from this slide, it's that if you ever want a good band to listen to while just getting in the groove of programming, it's Rat-a-Tat. They're fantastic. I've also gotten into running. I ran a Spartan this year for my first time, and tomorrow I'm running my first half marathon, so big weekend. It's great. So I also am our director of engineering at Fashion File. We sell pre-loved ultra luxury goods. What that is expensive purses that are used. They range from $1,000 to $300,000. So it's pretty crazy inventory. Our stack that we use is mainly PHP. It was a monolith. We've since moved over to an API-centric Node and serverless backend with Vue and React headless front ends. Here's kind of the application itself. So I've been with the company since 2018. It's going on 5 years. When I joined in 2018, we were 4 engineers. In 2019, this is what I want to talk about, is this period of time. We were 8 engineers, all happy, high code quality, high code coverage and tests. Things were going dandy. And we really enjoyed each other. It was a great team, and we were building a lot of really awesome things. Now, in 2019, we decided to go through an investment round, our first investment round as a company. And the company at the time was 60 employees total. And this investment was done by Neiman Marcus. And so we got a pretty big infusion of cash. And at the time, what they also wanted is we were able to meet with them for technical audits. It was a really cool experience for myself. And when we were going through these technical audits, they said, hey, you need to massively grow your team if you want to hit what you're trying to hit. And I was like, great. What does that mean? We tripling the size? And they go, no, we want to bring it up to 50 engineers. And I was like, whew. And they're like, in a year. I was like, okay, that's a lot. And so I was thinking about how do we do this? We have such a tight group. How do we grow our team and keep this culture that we had? Where we have this, just awesome collaboration. We all get along. And in the middle of this, mind you, this is 2019. Within the next year, we also all go remote, right? Which we had never done that. At the time, Fashion File was against being remote at all. And now we're remote. On top of that, this team, they also said we want to open up a new office in LA. So we had all been here in Utah. Now we're opening up a new office in California. So, oh man, there's a lot of things of how do we build this team and keep good quality code and high culture. So there was a lot of things ahead of us. And I was debating on talking about some of these things that we had to do. And they would have been great talks, I promise. But we could have talked about microservice architecture. We could have talked about our event source platform we built on Kafka and SNS. We built a shared private component library using Storybook that was a shared style guide across all these different applications. We also moved from Rackspace to AWS EC2s, and then over to ECS with Terraform. So we did this whole AWS infrastructure as code in that time frame. So not only do we have to grow, we have to do a lot of scaling within our system and changes. So these are things that we didn't all completely know, but we had to learn and we had to grow and we had to adapt. But I didn't want to talk about all this stuff. Although it's really cool, it's really interesting, and if you ever want to talk about it after, hit me up on Slack or whatever, LinkedIn, we can chat about it. It was interesting. But I want to talk about what was important in all this, because all those things that we did were only possible if we were keeping people, right? Those original 8 engineers, my goal was I like these people. They're really solid engineers, and anybody who here, you're on a team, you're working with people, you know that subject matter information that you have in your brain, that's valuable. I want to keep those people around. So me as the leader of this team, I wanted to keep those people. So how do I do that, right? And so what our goal was is build a positive engineering culture. And to me, that's 3 things. It's enjoy where you work, what you work on, and who you work with. I think those are really valuable. Because to me, I really enjoy programming, right? Who here, like, by raising hands, who like doesn't just do programming because it's a job, but like you program because it's like for fun, it's your hobby, right? Yeah, that's me, that's me. If you don't, I spent some time on the side because programming is a lot of fun. And so I feel very fortunate, and so why not do something that I'm doing right now with people that I enjoy for a company that I also enjoy working on something that is really cool. And so that's my perspective on it. But what I cared about is the 8 people on my team at that time. And what we decided to do is, instead of me defining what that culture was, is we asked them. And we said, hey, what is the culture you want? And so they came up with these 6 values. And this is what was important to them: team effort, communication, diversity, quality, growth, and balance. These were the 6 words that they came up with. So we said, okay, this is what you value. Let's try and build around this. This is what we want to keep. As we scale, as we hire 42 new engineers, let's figure out how to scale this and get there. So the question that I had was, how do you build these values naturally while growing and while being remote? How do you do that? It's a pretty hard thing, and I also want to make sure I emphasize naturally, because I think if you try and force things, that's when things go wrong, right? I also had somebody really wise once tell me that culture is like air. You don't realize it's there until it starts to stink. So you probably don't realize if you're working at a good company or not, because it's probably going good, but once it goes crappy, you'll know it. So I brought up a picture here of rugby, and people are going to see this and say, oh, that's a scrum. I know scrum because I'm in an agile scrum team. But I'm actually going to use it a little bit differently. I know rugby pretty well because I played rugby in college. So this is Snow College. I bet this is what your typical rugby player, when you think of rugby, looks like. They used to call me Jack the Pumpkin King, because when I'd go for a tackle, I'd stretch all out, and I was 150 pounds and 6'5". So it was fun. But I enjoyed playing rugby. I think it's a really awesome sport overall. But there's a lot of nuances to it, right? And when I think about code reviews is the handoff, the pass off from an individual developer working on a project and then passing it off to whoever's, to people to look it over before it goes into production, right? So it's the pass. And so I was thinking about this kind of analogy of a pass. And most people, when they think of a pass, are going to think of basketball, right? And I loved looking at how to do an inbounds pass in basketball. Like that's the instructions on how to do an inbound pass, by the way, in basketball, if you didn't know. It's really complicated. But that's what it is, right? And doing an inbound pass is just passing it over. And I think some people treat their code reviews like this, right? Like, hey, I'm done with my code. Here you go. Thank you. Here you go. And like you just pass along and you get that nice approval, right? Now, inbound passes in rugby are called lineouts. And that's a bit more complicated. So although I didn't look like the typical rugby player, my job was as a jumper. I was light, I was tall, I played receiver a bit in high school, and my job was to get lifted up to catch the ball, right? And it was a pretty good job for myself, and obviously I was part of other things too. But what happens here in the line out is there's somebody outside who throws in the ball, and both teams can line up and have a chance to actually get the ball. And so your job is leverage higher, try and grab the ball, and you'll see that there's jumpers, the jumper who's the one who's getting lifted, there's the lifters who are lifting that person up, and then over here on the side, you're gonna have receivers. And those receivers are the ones that when the jumper catches it, is gonna throw it over, and then the play is gonna continue. And so your job is get the ball, continue it on. It's a pretty complex art, right? And I wanna liken that a bit to code reviews, in that we all need lifters, right? You can just do passes off. You can just do that inbound pass if you want. But what I want is I want people that are gonna make my code better. I want them to lift it up, and they're gonna have to be the strongest people, right? Because in the end, the most important point is that we are all receivers. And that's the point that I like to get across to the team, is that the code that we build, you're all gonna be affected by it, right? Because my job isn't to keep you happy here. My job is to keep you happy here for a long period of time. I'd like to see people be at my company for 2, 3, 5 years, obviously growing in their capacity and growing in their positions too. And so if you're gonna be here for 2 or 3 years, there's a good chance you're gonna get affected by whatever code goes into production. So, do your code reviews look like an inbound pass or as a lineup or a line out? And I have a couple questions that could probably help to say whether yours are or not. One is, how often are you doing code reviews? So by raise of hands, how many people here aren't doing code reviews at all? Is there anybody who in their company don't do code reviews? I think that's a pretty standard thing, right? Oh, you don't have to if it's embarrassing. It's okay. How many people do maybe one code review a day? Is that pretty average? Yeah, everyone one code review do? How many people do many code reviews a day? Yeah, right? So many code reviews a day. And then what's your CPPR is what I will call it. Your comments per pull request, right? If you were to think about it, how many comments are you putting on your pull requests? Because you could just put 0 and just slam that, smash that approval button. I think adding comments is pretty important. So I think between these two things, you can actually pull a lot of how you're interacting as your team. And so going back to growing this team, what we were just talking about, how many people are doing this multiple times a day is important, because we were looking at this, and from a top level, how do you affect your team directly without being forceful? And code reviews was an easy place. Code reviews is a place where we know multiple people are interacting between them each day. And so let's look at code reviews and what they are, right? And so I'm briefly just gonna go this because I think most people know what a code review is, and it's just basically a QA of your code. So that's a definition of it. I'm gonna keep on going because I think most people know code reviews. And I wanna talk a little bit about my first experience with code reviews, because it's helping to shape how I do code reviews in the future. Now, I've kind of coined this term called macho devs. And this is what, when my first company that started using code reviews had a lot of macho devs. And do you even build your own framework? Because I'm pretty sure they all were building their own frameworks. Like, that was their thing. And there's a couple key attributes of macho devs. Everything is done in the terminal. You can't use a GUI. Also, you have to scoff at any new technology. They have some certain technology. Zen 2 was the only framework outside of their own, obviously. And then they loved going heads down. They loved going off for 2 weeks, working on something and coming back and presenting it for everybody. Now, macho devs don't really look like that. They're probably more heads down in their code, really going at it. And for some reason, this guy has 2 computers, 1 hand on each. That's impressive. You can't fault this guy. And some people, and I do want to just say, some people are probably like, the culture I do want is heads down, and that's okay. I'm not saying you can't have that be your culture. That just wasn't the culture I liked. And so when it came to working with these individuals, and that's what they wanted, that's not what I wanted. Because what ended up happening when I had these macho code reviews is it created long wait times, poor quality, where they weren't helping me at all, and these unhelpful comments that, sure, they might just approve and not even say anything, or just discouraging remarks, which Neil talked a lot about this earlier today, and if you weren't there for that, I would go back and kind of watch back on his talk. It was really good and insightful. And so I didn't want this. This shaped, I thought if something can hurt and damage my perspective of the team as much as this, it's probably powerful enough to do the inverse and change my perspective on the team also. So I wanted to transform code reviews. And I'm gonna give you a couple tips on what I did going to a new team and then leading this team to help transform our code reviews and make them really productive and help our culture that, as we grew, defined our culture. So one is take out subjectivity. I think it's important. We've had a lot of what we'll call discussions about different topics. And here's several of the topics that I think are my favorites that we've kind of gone over, about how much should we use a framework library or ORM? Or where does the logic belong? Or how much should we be doing type checking or unit tests? Are we using Redux? And should we be doing dry? Or how much should we be doing dry, right? There's a lot of these conversations that become very opinionated. And we were like, hey, let's take out the opinions of this, because when you have code reviews that it's, well, I think it should be this way, and then the next comment says, well, I think it should be this way, it's pretty unproductive. And so then that's where arguments begin, and I think arguments are good as long as they're constructive. And what we decided was, let's take these, and we asked everybody on the team to create a Google Doc of their strongest opinions. We want to hear them. We want to say, hey, we appreciate that you have these opinions because it means that you care. And so take these opinions and write them down. If you care enough, write it down and submit it. And then what we did is we had a 2.5-hour-long meeting, and we walked through everybody's opinions. And we said, hey, does everybody agree on this opinion? And if everybody agreed, or if that person could convince everybody that was good, it's no longer an opinion, is now a standard. We just decided within our company, we're going to make our own standards that say, these aren't opinions anymore. You know, if you think ternaries shouldn't be nested, that's probably a good thing. And we all agreed on it. We shouldn't nest our ternaries, right? And so we came up with these own lists of standards that everyone agreed on. This is just a part of it, right? But it was pretty in depth. So, and there's some pretty obvious ones in here, you know, that the smaller is better, rule of 30, 1.5, max of 30 lines per function, 30 functions per class, max file lengths of 1,000. Whew, seems pretty obvious, but I can promise you, anybody who's worked on a system for over 5 years, you maybe have come across a longer than 1,000 line file. But that was our rule. We said from here on out, we're not going to allow this anymore. We're going to try and keep things reduced as much as possible. So take out that subjectivity. 2 is remove friction. We really wanted to make it as smooth as possible because for a lot of people, code reviews aren't fun. And we were like, let's get rid of all the things that are tedious, right? And these are pretty obvious. Automate what you can. Linters, unit tests, security checks, get rid of all of that so you don't have to worry about it. And there's actually a talk right after, speech right after this one that Daniel's gonna be doing that I would definitely stay and learn about. I'm not gonna talk about automating much because he'll be talking about that. The other thing with friction is people will talk about pair programming. And I think there's some pros and cons to pair programming. Some people say, oh, you do not need code review at all if you pair program. It's beautiful. And I would agree. I think in most situations, pair programming is great and you don't need it. You don't need to do any code reviews. But I'll say, I feel like it takes away responsibility. I think there is something to tell somebody, hey, you're responsible for this piece of code. You go and be creative and figure out how to solve it, and then come back and talk to the rest of us. And I think that there is a lot that can come from that of giving people some room to breathe and not having just the strongest person in the room talk. And as long as your culture is good, you can probably have really great pair programming sessions. We do a lot of pair programming still at our company. Third one is be nimble, which is being quick and be small. Now, this might be familiar to some people. This is an actual PR from several years ago. It's 273 files. And mind you, these are not node modules. I want to be clear about that. This is straight up lines of code written. That's 6,809. I remember because I did the code review. When I was writing this, I was like, I can think of the exact PR I need to show here because it took me 2 days to review this. 2 days of code review. That's not fun, right? This is not nimble. This was horrible. It feels like going to Mordor, all right? The deployment was awful. It was a lot of work, checking everything, making sure it's not something you want to go through. So, great quote from Vincent van Gogh is, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. And this is something that we've really adopted, is that your code review should be very small. In all of your code commits and PRs should be small, and they should go up to production, right? We could talk about trunk-based development and a lot of other things, but I would definitely get on the train of you should be deploying everything to production behind feature flags that then you can just turn on at a future date and not be doing these huge deployments. That alone has saved us a lot of headaches and made it way more enjoyable. You know, going through a 5-file PRs is not that bad. Okay, so let's say we do all this. We're nimble, we're automating things, we're not subjective anymore. What are the point of code reviews now, right? You've done all that. Feels like everything that you were needed to do is all done. And that's not the case. Because now what you get to do is you get to focus on what matters. And there's 3 main things that I think matter here. One is knowledge sharing. This is important because I want to take time off, right? And I don't want to have to be the person that has to be worried about a system going down, right? This was a key part of balance, right? Is people want to be able to be with their families or be able to take time off. And if everybody knows the code, then you're not relying on that one person. And I think we've all been in that situation where one person knows the code so well when they leave and a problem happens, you're in a tough situation. Also, this provides that everybody can learn. You can learn about how different software works or different paradigms. And there's a lot of things to learn there. The second one is building relationships and investing in people. And I think that there's a lot here of just, once again, this is what we were trying in our core thing is making sure that these teams, although they were remote, had a place to interact. Because developers, let's be honest, unless they're forced to, you know, they're really not going to interact very much. And so we want to be people to have a point where they could build these relationships. And then the third one, solve business problems. And this is why we're there. Right? We're there to provide our value to our company and solve these actual business problems. myself, when I look for a new engineer, the number one attribute I look for is problem solving. I think problem solving is the key indicator if somebody is going to be a good programmer. I often call us detectives because we're looking for those bugs, we're looking for those issues and where they happen. And that's something that you can't teach. You can't teach somebody how to be a better problem solver. You can give them different tools. You can show them how to use, the console and debugger and stuff like that. But like, you really want them to be able to understand something, be able to see where these problems are happening. And so let's solve some business problems together. And that's what we're able to do with code reviews. The last one I'll say is of all of this allows you to really care about what you're working on. So going back to the rugby, we're all receivers here. A big part is keeping your eye on the ball and making sure that it's not hitting you in the face, right? We all own this code. Show that you care. And that's what each of these steps are allowing you to do, is that you're showing the others that you care. And that's what people really just want. People really want to know that you care about what they're working on. And we sometimes get in the argument of, is programming an art or a science, right? And to me, I think it's a mix of both. But code reviews is a good place where it really does feel like an art, where you're able to take it and somebody submits something to you. And it's a little bit vulnerable, right? Submitting this piece of work that you just worked on that somebody can just full on scrutinize is a little bit vulnerable. But as long as we can do it right, you can appreciate, you can praise, you can question. There's a lot of things that you can do to show that you care about what this person's working on because it was their time, right? They're putting time into this. And although they're getting paid to, we should definitely try and make this a good experience where we can then, when you give good criticism, it's valued. Because if not, then it just feels like you're, once again, one of those macho devs just trying to beat them down, right? And say that you're superior. So in doing all this, we were able to do some pretty cool things. And this is one that I'd say I would encourage for a lot of people is enabling your team. One of our requirements that we ended up putting as we were hiring all these new people was we require all engineers, regardless of level, to leave 10 comments on code reviews within their first 90 days. It was a requirement that if you're a junior dev and you're coming, I expect you to be leaving comments on your senior developer's code or on your engineering manager's code. I don't care who it is. I expect you to be leaving code reviews. And that's because, and that could be, the comment could be as simple as, wow, this is really cool. That's awesome. Or why did you do it this way? A comment, the comment doesn't have to be disparaging or anything like that, or even a criticism, but we wanted them to know that they had a voice in code review, that everybody has a voice. And so this was one of our ways of doing that, and it really proved very fruitful because it set a precedence that for the future of while you're here, we expect you to be interacting with each other and caring about each other's code. So what happened to our team culture, right? So as we grew this, this is, going back to our original values, right? So our team effort, which team effort was really people wanted to know that everybody around them was pulling their weight. It feels really good when your team is collaborating together and you can trust each other and you can see their successes and they can value your own achievements too. That feels really good when you can, as a team, see that. Our communication, we made sure was honest and transparent about everything, right? And I feel like this is what built a lot of our foundations. Once again, with diversity, everyone had a voice. We want to make sure that if you had a different idea, that's great. We want to hear it because we want to change. And we had so much change going on that those different ideas were very needed. As far as quality, we all own it. So when you own it, you care about it. And you want to make sure if this goes wrong, this could ruin your Friday night one time, right? Or if something were to go wrong or deployment goes wrong. So when you care about it, you want it to be the best. And then obviously with growth, it's immediate and regular advice and ideas. And then with balance, your systems are fine, even if you aren't there. So we saw that although I wasn't directly interacting with each engineer, and that was my struggle, I wasn't able to work with each engineer as we were hiring up. And we ended up getting to 41 engineers is where we ended up getting. And that's just engineers. We also had UX designers, and we also had product managers, and we had project managers that we were interacting with, but 41 engineers. And those engineers are great people. And of the ones that we've hired, I think we've had a total of 3 people leave. And that's what we wanted, is we wanted to make sure that we had a team that people are staying on board and we get to keep them around and we get to enjoy working with each other long term. Because if we can have a place where we, going back to what we talked about originally, where you enjoy where you work, you enjoy what you work on and who you work with, why would you want to leave, right? And obviously we can shove more money down people's throats and be like, oh, stay. But even at that, like, I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And I think that people here, you can get that job. But look for something that's more valuable than just the job. Look for a place that you can really enjoy and that the people you're with, you enjoy. And be that person that makes the difference, right? Each person does matter because one person can sour the culture. So just in summary, I wanted to just throw this up here just to show you kind of what we talked about of, one, define what your culture is. I think that's one thing that we did really well. And I would advise you, even if you're not the team leader here, figure out what you want individually with your team. And then try and make that change yourself. And then the rest of them is taking out subjectivity, remove that friction, be nimble, and then focus on what matters. And I think all of this will help you to, one, enjoy your job a lot more, and you'll be able to get a lot more out of, a lot more growth in what you're looking for within your company. But yeah, that's everything I have, and thanks for joining.